So the model itself is very detailed. There are furniture inside the building, and even this hill was modeled, so there is a huge mesh modeled for this house, like for environment. I'm ready to start now the export process, so I go save as usually. Choose a location, choose a name, and choose Artlantis Render Studio 5.0 Export. The option palette appears, offering me the possibility to transfer all those textures ArchiCAD map on surfaces to simulate different finishings, the same perspective cameras, artificial lights if I am in the internal rendering settings, the heliodome, the sun, and the possibility to merge all the layer information into a single layer. This time I would like to transfer all ArchiCAD layers into Artlantis and see the benefit of this later on. So the export starts, and as a result I will have an Artlantis file, and I will have a folder that contains all those textures I was speaking about. So let's see how this project looks in Artlantis. And we welcome you into the interface of Artlantis 5, this completely redesigned interface, which now is identical on Macintosh and PC. And it's organized in a way to allow the largest space possible to the preview window of Artlantis. Because with this new version, we are not only we are doing more and more steps right in the preview, so it allows us to work more in the preview. Therefore, there is no need for additional windows and palettes. So I'm navigating in this real-time preview window. It refreshes automatically after every step. And because most of our renderings are sized horizontally, the place allowed load to this preview window is also horizontal. So the inspectors can be found in the upper side of the screen in this banner. These are the shaders, the artificial lights, the heliodome, the sun, as we call them in Artlantis, objects, and different camera inspectors. Every inspector has a drawer, and this drawer can be hidden or can appear just sliding like this. I can duplicate, in this case the drawer belongs to cameras. I can duplicate a present camera view, take my mouse, it slides back, disappears, so allowing me to focus even more in the preview. I'm navigating, setting a new camera, even widening the focal. Okay, so to see more of this house and emphasizing this nice entrance for this view. So if I open again my drawer, the thumbnail for this camera was refreshed automatically, and I have already 2 cameras for my project. Then I can continue to texture to set materials. So I will open the shader inspector and detect materials right in the preview window. So I click on a surface, the other gray out, showing me the surface which was selected. The inspector will highlight the settings, and I can start to make changes. These changes are instantly shown by the preview. So if I change the color, it appears, it is refreshed at every step, at every change. So I can really control what will happen in the final rendering. Certainly, I would like to apply materials into my scene, and I get closer to the entrance. And from my catalog that I can open in the other drawer here at the bottom of the screen, I will make it to stay open all the time, resize my preview. So I have a lot of productivity tools here around helping me to organize the interface the way I need. So this is the catalog of Artlantis down here. This catalog can store different library parts that could be 3D objects like plants, cars, lamps, including light sources, furniture, whatever. Can be billboards or different shaders, materials, which are organized in categories and subcategories. So to apply a shader from the catalog into the preview means a drag and drop over the surface where I would like to apply it. This shader will be mapped on all those surfaces which were assigned to have the same material in ArchiCAD. If I want to change this shader, I simply drop another one on top of it. The inspector will highlight the settings, the parameters, and I can start to make changes if I need. And I will do this review of parameters in a moment. I apply another shader, a nice stone shader on this wall here, and change the size of this stone shader just to complete even more my view. This stone shader is more about relief, so I don't need reflection, I don't need shininess, but I do need bump, normal map, and all these parameters help me to give a relief to this surface. And the key slider here is the 3D effect slider, which now has no value. And as I give it more and more value, the stone would look as if they were pulled out from the plan of the wall, simulate this 3D effect without charging the geometry. So this is the nice about this shader family, including 3D effect parameter, introduced by version 5 of Artlantis. Shader settings can be stored through postcards. So let me open the postcard library here and show you some nice postcards coming from my previous projects, because postcards are independent of projects. They are small JPEG images saved based on the preview window, and they store settings of shaders. So if I would like to apply a shader, reapply a shader with a certain saved setting, means a drag and drop from the postcard directly into my preview window. The same I will apply this glass surface here, and I will speed up my settings and present you the Frontal family of shader. This very nice and complex shader setup colors, which are able to simulate complex surfaces such as water or glass or car paint, whatever. The key slider here is the Frontal transition that mixes the reflectiveness of the surface with the transparency. So we have to find a good proportion between the two to simulate a realistic surface. Okay, something like this, let's say. This reflection can be distorted, so I can work out the flatness of the surface, distort based on XY coordinate. And if the window pane detection is checked and I have a big glass wall built on different window panes, the reflection will be detected separately in every pane and distorted separately. So this is the Frontal family. Another family, and also introduced by version 5 of Artlantis, is that of realistic lawn. So I will drop it over the lawn here and navigate a little bit to show you more of this surface. That's it. This is a shader which is composed of two different maps. The first map adjusts the patch of ground with the burned out grass. So this is the first one. The second one is about the, let's say, healthy grass. So those green, dark green patches mixed with the ground patches, and the transition between these two is managed by the third slider, so we can keep it very strict, as you see, or we can smooth it, and the amount of patch, the set amount of patch, can be reorganized with the dice, and all this with the purpose to avoid repetition effect, because lawn surfaces occupy quite huge parts of the design sometimes, and it's good to avoid any repetition there. So these were the postcards. If I would like to save any setting here, I can easily create a small JPEG of this preview and for further usage. I notice that Kern is using textures very often, so image files to simulate materials. So I will also use this wood boarding for the ceiling, and let me just navigate a bit, get closer to this ceiling. Okay, to see how textures can be manipulated in Artlantis. They can be simply moved on any surface applied with a drag and drop. I can even enlarge them. I can also introduce numbers, of course, if I wish to work with the exact values, but I can also work graphically. I can rotate these textures, so my idea was to have these boardings parallel with the main direction toward the entrance, but I'm not pretty sure whether is parallel with this direction or not. So maybe I should align it with one of the edges of this ceiling. So let me grab this texture from its edge and make it detect the edge of the geometry. And now I can make sure that it's parallel. So wherever I drag it, will stay parallel with that edge. And all I have to do is to repeat it. Okay. And then work a little bit with the reflection. No, not really so reflective. It's not a mirror I would like to achieve. I would like to achieve a kind of a glossy surface. So I'm taking back a bit the shyness and the reflection. So let's say something like this. If I decide to create a shader based on this nice image, then I can open the settings of any shader in the shader editor and add this diffuse image, which was the boarding, the wood boarding, complete it with the maps for the reflection, shininess, bump, normal, alpha, and 3D effect. Save it with a certain name, and I can store it in my catalog for the future projects. Coming back to the perspective inspector, switching to the first whatever view, it's time to prepare backgrounds, to work with backgrounds a little bit. I noticed that Kirk is using 2D images for backgrounds. So I will do the same and apply a background with a simple drag and drop behind the building. Opening its dialog, I can easily resize this image, place it in the behind the model, snap it certain directions, enlarge it. So because they are staying independent in size from the preview, they can be easily managed. I can even work its brightness, set it exactly based on pixels if I know that. Or if I decide to apply the size of this background image to my final rendering, it's only one click. But this time I will keep them individual, different, and this will be a possibility for background. I will duplicate this present camera view and take off this background to show you a second possibility, that of a very realistic sky dome filled with beautiful clouds. But before getting to that point, I would like to get rid of this black background something, which is called infinite ground, and should be activated. So that's a checkbox, and it activates for me an infinite slab that goes from the horizon to horizon. It can be leveled, so I will lower it. I can edit its shader, and this is the good point, that it can host shaders, it can host objects, it can complete my geometry, but because not always I have the possibility to build in ArchiCAD the surroundings of my building, and then such a ground is very welcome to build the environment for the building. And now we can continue with the heliodome. So in the heliodome, and now I will keep my drawer open, I have already a sun. It is called ArchiCAD heliodome because it comes from ArchiCAD, and certainly it was set to an exact geographical location in ArchiCAD, so all those parameters are kept. If one of my projects is located in a different part of the globe, then I can choose different cities, a huge city list, which certainly doesn't contain all the possibilities. So I can edit this list, add a new item to it, introduce coordinates, exact coordinates, set the north precisely, and then create an exact sun study for any building. This sun study can be animated also for a period of the year, so we can set the period, time of the year, period of the day, so that can be studied really in detail. Setting the daytime, the day goes from midnight to midnight. Okay, different parameters for the sun can be also edited, and here is the cloud editor. This I will activate, and opening is dialog to show you those 4 cloud types we have access at, that increases, decreases in real time in the preview window as I change their amount. They can be reorganized in the sky with this dice, searching for the best composition of these clouds. These clouds are evenly distributed in the whole sky dome, so they can become a great background for a moving presentation as well. So this could be a possibility, a nice background, a second background for our model with a sun set at an exact geographical location. In Artlantis, we can generate more than one sun, so can be any number, and each of them can be assigned active for a camera. So now I will switch, create a new sun, and change it to show you a second possibility of sun type, which is called manual. When we speak about a manual sun, means that we can set its position manually, either through these icons, and in a moment the sun appears. In the preview, we can grab it and drag it in the sky to a new location. Please note that as I move the sun in the sky, the power of it, the tone of it, the sunlight color changes automatically. It adapts to its position in the sky. I can even activate some lens flare effect, okay, that will refreshed in a moment. The refreshment of the preview finishes will be applied as an extra layering. And I also would like to highlight at this point the quality of the preview window. So it is displayed in full radiosity, which means I have the direct lights, I have the indirect lights, the shadows, the radiosity shadows. This quality is very reliable because it's consistent with the final rendering. So it offers me an excellent feedback of my future image I'm preparing actually. So this is a second possibility for the lighting of this house. I can even duplicate this camera view and set active a preview sun. So keep all these presentations. I have already multiple presentations with different backgrounds, different lighting, because every camera can be customized, and everything we see here in its inspector can become an independent parameter for a camera. So what can be an independent parameter? The heliodon, the sun, artificial lights, shaders that emit light, background, the heliodon sky, the ground can also be. The architect camera, and let me show you this great feature, because at a certain point when we have a very wide focal for our camera, the verticals start to be distorted. So that should be corrected. And this is the architect camera about. This single click will turn verticals parallel again, so it becomes comfortable for our eye. At any movement of the camera will, at any movement, this option will stay on and the refreshment will be done with the architect camera on. So this is also an option for a camera. Another option for the cameras are the layers. And here come that part I was mentioning back in ArchiCAD, because all these layers, and I'm rolling down the list of layers which can be customized separately for each view, come from ArchiCAD, and they store part of the model. So I can deactivate different elements on this, reactivating. Maybe I have a good combination of these layers and I would like to create a nice presentation with shaders, great lights, and then hiding some of them, setting visible some of them. I can generate multiple views. Layers in Artlantis are meant to organize objects. So it's time to switch to the objects actually. And in the drawer, we will refine the same set of layers. I can create new layer. I will add a new layer. Objects. This will be specific Artlantis object layer that can be customized to collect specific objects, but this time I will keep it a general layer, and start to enrich my environment here with some plants, some bushes maybe. Okay, here is one. Can be applied with a drag and drop again, and there are some icons appearing. helping me to set some major settings for these objects right in the preview. But this time I will open my 2D window just to show you, not only to show you that we have 2D window as well that shows the model and projection in all views, but to create a spline along which this object will be duplicated. So that will be a curved spline, okay, because plants won't grow along a straight line. And then say how many copies I need, quite many of them. Okay, there is a randomization feature, so Artlantis will detect that these are plants. They should be randomized to avoid repetition effect again. A simple right click, apply gravity. It means that they will detect the closest surface and follow the hill and map correctly with their anchor point on it. So that is about object, and let me go inside the building now. Find the second camera position, and still for objects and speaking about the benefit of objects and layers. Here we are inside this living room, dining room, where the furniture come from ArchitectCAD. If I would like to hide this layer because I have some other Artlantis objects, or I would like to create a variation in furnishing for this interior, then I can do so with a simple layer that is hidden now, containing the other object types, and now adding to the scene a table coming from the Artlantis library. So that could be a possibility. That could be a variation to my scene. This is another benefit of layers. I would need to lit a bit more this scene, so it's time to speak about artificial lights. Artificial lights are organized in groups. These groups can be named. Light sources can be added to this group. Every new light source will overlap the camera, helping us to find them easily and fast. Okay. Finding its target point, make it visible in the preview window. Here it is. And at this moment, I can start to make changes to this light directly in the preview. So this is also a new possibility in Artlantis 5 to manipulate lights. This is the target I can manipulate. I can manipulate its angle. I can even change the position of the light vertically by dragging it along this blue axis and change its position in space. And this is a very tricky thing to do when it's about a point. So this axis will help me because it's a very flexible one. It detects the geometry. So if I want to make the light lit the table, I place the axis on the table. Now I know that the light source is right above the table. Set its target point, widen its angle, and then I can continue the settings right in the preview. So giving it a bit warm color, okay, and so forth. So duplicating this light, can easily create copies of it. And if I select all these three lights in the drawer, I can continue to make changes to all three lights together. select one of the projection modes, and activate a kind of light cone which simulates the light emission. This volumetric lighting, as you see, appears in the preview. Of course, we always should keep in mind to have something realistic at the end to make it credible, keep it credible. And even if they are point light sources, they can contribute to the atmosphere very quickly done for this interior as a variation, as a possibility for this interior. So far, I've presented you everything by setting up still images, perspective views. In Artlantis, we can prepare parallel views as well, and other presentation modes are also possible. So let's continue with parallel views. Parallel views, and if you take a look at the inspector of parallel views, are built on the same principle. Each camera can be customized with lights, backgrounds, layers, and so forth, and even more, they can be rendered up to a scale. So if I wish to have a rendering at 1 to 100, scale to 1 to 100, then I enter the scale and Artlantis will automatically resize the final rendering in order to keep that scale valid. That can be added then to my building license with all the shaders, lights calculated in full radiosity. The next presentation mode would be about a VR object. I will slightly reorganize my interface, closing the catalog, I don't need it, enlarge my preview as much as possible, and open the 2D window to see why is different the VR object, what's the difference here. VR objects are great to present volumes. And if I would like to present this house as a VR object, then I will build a semisphere this time on which the camera will move while the house will stay still in the middle of this sphere. The navigation features in the preview window change, so I will be able to navigate the same way as I navigate in the final VR object. I can even set the number of frames for this VR object just to multiply them, make smoother the navigation. Okay. And what I need to do even more, set the background. Either I activate the infinite ground, but this time I would like to use something else, an HDRI image. So I will deactivate the sun, and from my catalog here, from the HDRI images, I will choose and apply for my scene such a HDRI for which I have to activate the light. I can work the power of the light, of course, the brightness of the background image itself. I can set its position because we are on a hill that should be lowered, maybe something like this. Okay. And using as a background and as a lighting for the light, this very complex HDRI can help me very much to prepare a nice rendering. And here is a final example calculated for this Penguin house with the same HDRI background. This was calculated in HTML format, so such a VR object can be calculated in HTML. It's a Flash-based presentation, then can be opened in any browser. It can be viewed offline and online as well. if it's added to a website through a link. This is the iVisit 3D technology which offers this possibility. And going back into the Artlantis, I would like to show you the panoramas still based on iVisit 3D technology, which is a different presentation mode because here the camera stays still and we are turning all around this camera and viewing an interior, for example. In the 2D window, the camera is represented differently. I can easily add a new camera to this panorama. Multiple nodes can compose a panorama. These nodes can be linked, and the preview window helps me and offers me the possibility to navigate the same way as I navigate in a final panorama. Even the links appear and they are active based on, and I can check out really my final panorama. Of course, I can give a name to my nodes. I can add a plan view, and let me show you the final example. Here it is. I'm viewing it the same in a browser. It was saved in an HTML format as well. So this is the entrance of the Penguin House. Just to review, let's review. Let's make a guided tour in the Penguin House with the help of iVisit 3D Panorama. Links appear time to time that take me to another node. The whole scene is nicely textured, great reflection on this glass wall. Nodes can be chosen from a drawer below. Even a plan view was added to this panorama. A plan view enriches the information provided by such a presentation, and it also includes the different nodes. So the one we are at is flashing actually, and I can choose another node and continue my tour.